68 BC, when Caesar was 42 years old, he was appointed proconsul of Gaul. This meant that Caesar was in charge of 3 provinces, Illyria, Gallia Cisalpina and Gallia Narbonensis, and that for the unusual long period of 5 years. The Gaulish provinces of which Caesar was the new ruler were close to home. Gallia Cisalpina had been annexed by the Romans around 200 BC and was already heavily Romanized during Caesar's time. A similar story accounts to Gallia Narbonensis, which had been conquered in 125 BC to gain an easy passage to Spain. It is very unlikely that Caesar envisioned the easy life of a Roman governor when he first departed for his new home. Caesar was hungry for military fame, plus he needed money to continue his political career. His rival Pompeius had booked significant success with his campaigns, which increased his power in Rome. Caesar could not stay behind. The eye of the new governor was set on the not yet conquered part of Gaul. For the next 7 years, Caesar would wage war in Gaul. He wrote 7 books over his actions, in which he treated 1 warrior per book, which in itself does not sound that uncommon. After all, as a statesman, it's your duty to report to the Senate. However, the Bello Gallico is not a boring states report. Caesar turns it into a story that should captivate as much as possible. He reconstructs battles, speeches, and provides interesting information about Gaul and its inhabitants. The latter in particular was greatly appreciated by the readers. The image of the savage and barbaric Gaul was deeply ingrained in the Roman psyche. The readers loved hearing stories about this faraway and mysterious country. People in Rome, and probably Caesar himself too, were very curious about the world beyond the Hercynian Forest, which has for centuries been regarded as a northern boundary of known Europe. This ancient and dense forest once stretched across western Central Europe from northeastern France to the Carpathian Mountains. The concept of this vast forest apparently fascinated Caesar, because in his books he often mentions the old tales of unicorns, moose, aurochs, and of elk without joints, which leaned against trees to sleep in the endless forests of Germania. Caesar opens his first book of his campaign with a description of the non-Roman part of Gaul. This passage can also be of interest to us.
Gallia est omnis divisa in partes tres, quarum una incolunt Belgae, aliam Aquitani, tertiam qui ipsorum lingua Celtae nostra Galli appellantur.
Notice how Caesar makes a distinction between 3 different groups, the Belgae, the Aquitanii, and the Celts. This distinction is a little bit misleading, because it makes it seem that the Belgae and Aquitanii are no Celtic tribes. This is untrue. All 3 groups are in fact Celtic. The Romans, however, refer to them as Gauls.
All these differ from each other in language, customs, and laws. The river Garonne separates the Gauls from the Aquitani. The Marne and the Seine separate them from the Belgi. Of all these, the Belgi are the bravest, because they are furthest from the civilization and refinement of our province, and merchants least frequently resort to them, and import those things which tend to effeminate the mind. And they are the nearest to the Germans, who dwell beyond the Rhine, with whom they are continually waging war.
In these lines we are introduced to another people, the Germans, who inhabit the lands on the other side of the Rhine River. If the Gauls are uncivilized according to Caesar, then the Germans are straight up barbarians. In his 6th book, Caesar offers a vivid picture of the Germanic lifestyle and culture. He depicts the Germans as primitive hunter-gatherers with diets mostly consisting of meat and dairy products. German women reportedly wear small cloaks of deer hide and bathe in the river naked with their fellow men. However, the distinguishing characteristic of the Germans for Caesar is their warring nature, which he believed is a sign of true valor. While Caesar certainly respects the warring instincts of the Germans, he wants his readers to see that their cultures are simply too barbaric. The first real military event during Caesar's occupation occurred after the migration of the Helvetians under the lead of Vercingetorix. The Helvetians had departed from their historical homeland in a quest to conquer all of Gaul. Of course, Caesar could not let this happen, and he decided to come in action. Long story short, the Helvetians were defeated and sent back to their homeland. Vercingetorix died, and Caesar had won his first war in Gaul. After this first productive summer, Caesar departed for Gallia Cisalpina, because during the cold winter months there was no fighting. His army he led behind with befriended Gaulish tribes. Over the course of the next years, he would wage war in all parts of Gaul. He will achieve great victories, but will also suffer devastating losses, most notably against the Nervii, a Belgic tribe, in his second year as governor. But being the great statesman Caesar was, he attributed the defeats to the ignorance of his commanders. In the 4th year of his reign, Caesar undertook 2 great expeditions. First, he crossed the Rhine River and entered Germania. Germanic tribes allegedly had been crossing this river frequently and had caused some trouble among the Gauls. To intimidate the Germans, Caesar decided to take his army across the Rhine. Transferred by ship, he found too dangerous and also below the dignity of the Roman people, so he ordered a bridge to be built. In 10 days, the soldiers had finished this project. Caesar didn't stay long in Germania. He burned down some villages and decided to return to Gaul. Strictly military speaking, this mission didn't mean much, but Caesar chiefly wanted to impress, and in Rome, the story would arouse the admiration Caesar so much craved. Well, if his first expedition was exceptional, his second one was even more so. Caesar decided to use the last bit of summer to venture the crossing to Britannia. He suspected the Gauls of getting help from there, and he wanted to explore the mysterious country of which almost nothing was known. To many Romans, the island lay at the edge of the known world, even beyond the ocean. The ocean here referring to the great primordial river that allegedly encircled the world. Some Roman writers even insisted that the island did not exist and dismissed voyage reports as a hoax. Although Caesar failed to assert himself on the military field in Britannia, he certainly boosted his public image back in Rome. The people were fascinated by the stories of half-naked, blue-painted barbarians. During his last year in Gaul, Rome was in an uproar. The city was ravaged by political riots and fights between rival gangs. This unrest might have been a stimulus for the Gauls, who did not like the Roman oppressor and had decided to start an uprising. The Gaelic chieftains met in great secrecy during Caesar's winter absence. Plans were made to start a war. This unexpected news were ill tidings for Caesar. The unrest in Rome and the growing power of Pompeius, one of Caesar's political rivals, forced him to act quickly. The leader of the uprising was Vercingetorix, a young and powerful Arvernian. He achieved what no one else had achieved before him. He more or less united the different Gaulic tribes. The ultimate confrontation between Caesar and Vercingetorix took place around the fortified city of Illyria. There was a long siege, but in the end Caesar came out as the winner. Vercingetorix was brought to Rome as a war trophy and spent the rest of his life rotting away in a dungeon. With the decisive Battle of Illyria, Gaul was defeated for good and incorporated in the Roman Empire. Meanwhile in Rome, many had seen Caesar's popularity grow in dismay. The political future of Caesar divided Rome in 2 camps. His allies voted for a right which Caesar would allow to be re-elected as consul of Gaul, while his opponents demanded that Caesar must be held accountable for his deeds in Gaul. The opponents claimed that the war in Gaul was unlawful and solely intended to personally enrich Caesar. Finally, in 49 BC, Pompeius, who temporarily functioned as consul sine collega, demanded Caesar to disband his armies and come to Rome to answer for his deeds. To the conqueror of Gaul, this was no less than a shameful insult. Later that year, Caesar took the biggest gamble of his life. He crossed the Rubicon River, the border between Gaul and Italy, with his army at his back, according to the historian Suetonius, thereby uttering the famous words "Alia jacta est," meaning the die is cast. When Caesar landed on Italian soil, there was no way back. A new civil war had broken out.